Second time is a charm, we hope. Love to talk about the BetParx Sportsbook app. It is the only casino app that I use and recommend. BetParx in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Ohio. Odds and bets and slots and games all in the palm of your hand. What does it actually mean? Here's what it means. 9 o'clock tonight, you've got the United States women's soccer against Netherlands. The U.S. women have won all 9 of their games in 2023. They're a heavy favorite to win a third straight cup. Now, a $50 bet on them to win only returns $35. Kind of a conundrum. Do you go with a $50 wager on the underdog Netherlands, which would then pay $210? Because, of course, we all want the U.S. to win the match. Have some fun. Right in the palm of your hand. All you've got to do is have the BetParx Casino app. And by the way, it's not just women's soccer. It's like all sports, including the 3M Open this coming weekend in Minnesota. Have some fun in your camper, on the beach, at the pool, wherever you might be. You got to be 21 and in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Ohio. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Time now for the headlines from Smerconish.com, the Wednesday edition of the Daily Newsletter. I'm really excited about something. A brand new feature today in the newsletter. You might remember about 10 days ago, Jack Ohman was a guest of mine. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning editorial cartoonist. He's been with the Sacramento Bee. And the reason that he was a guest of mine on that particular program is that on one day, 3 Pulitzer Prize winning editorial cartoonists were all fired. Just a sign of the cutbacks in editorial function and newspapers all across the country. I love editorial cartoons. And Jack was a real character, a lot of personality, and obviously a gifted illustrator. He was on the program that day. We were talking about what's going on in the industry. I should also mention that he's the president of the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists. And we had a conversation post-show, and I said, Jack, will you please draw for Smerconish.com, the newsletter? And we've had a series of conversations about this. And today, if you scroll through the newsletter on your phone as I did, and when you get to exclusive content, you will see something that he drew exclusively for us, which, by the way, I love. Help me with this, TC. It's a couple sitting on a sofa. There's a sort of a thought bubble above the man. He's all excited. He is looking at Hunter Biden's laptop.
That's right.
And he says, Steve Bannon and Roger Stone recruited Oppenheimer and Clarence Thomas to get RFK Jr. to ask Barbie to shut down Anthony Fauci and George Soros to manipulate the Jews and the Chinese to vaccinate Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert against their will. And then presumably the wife sitting next to him, thought bubble above her, she says, I miss Oliver Stone.
I miss Oliver Stone.
And there's a box of pizza adjacent to them on the sofa on which it says Pizzagate. The point is that so fantastical have today's conspiracies become that the spouse here, she yearns for the days of Oliver Stone.
It's so good.
Isn't
he
gifted?
Way, I also think that, like, going forward now, the bar has been set that anyone who now wants to join Smerconish.com has to be a Pulitzer Prize winner. That's what that is my take from this, is that is where we are now, and I'm excited about it. I think it's a great idea.
It's just, the comment that we get, we've got this phenomenal open rate on the daily newsletter. Yes, I'm bragging about it.
Yeah.
But people not only have signed up, subscribed for it, but they actually open it.
Right.
And the comment that I get is from individuals who say, I scroll through the headlines. Some have paywalls that I can't access, but you give me the lead and I know what the news of the day is by, 8 o'clock Eastern time.
That's exactly what I hear from my friends. I quick get the gist. It's all I need. And if I want to do a deep dive, I click through and I can read the pieces. But if I don't, I at least know enough to know what's going on in the world.
Can I tell you something that's deliberate on my part?
Yes.
You don't have to click Jack's editorial cartoon to see it. You can enlarge it.
Right.
You can click and enlarge it. But so as you're scrolling, you go through all the headlines and then you get a little chuckle.
Yeah.
With his editorial cartoon.
Thrilled. I'm just thrilled.
So
Michael, you have been wanting to do something like this for years.
Right.
You've been interested in editorial cartoons. Right. We've had cartoonists on the
yes.
show. You've had cartoonists on CNN. So this, to me, is a very natural fit.
Yep.
And when he came on the show and started talking with you, I was like, this guy is just
oh my God. TC, the conversations
so
that we have had off air.
I bet. I can only imagine.
Have been extraordinary.
Oh, I can only imagine.
So fingers crossed that this is the start of something new.
Oh, good.
At Smerconish.com in the daily newsletter.
I'm thrilled.
Subscribe if you haven't. It's not only free, it's worthy.
Good.
It is worthy. Okay, something else in the follow-up impact segment of the program. We had 2 town halls with presidential candidates at a time when each was sort of on the, I'll say, periphery. I won't say fringe, okay? The first was with RFK Jr. Last night, I'm watching Hannity do a full hour town hall with RFK Jr. Really interesting to watch. And he was welcomed by the live Hannity audience as if he were a Republican, which is really an interesting phenomenon.
Fascinating.
Yeah, really, really interesting.
Yeah.
The second town hall that we had was with Vivek like cake Ramaswamy.
You just like saying that.
Yes, I do. So today, a couple of things about Vivek. He's now in third position. I mean, there's a big gulf between Vivek and Ron DeSantis, but it's now Trump, DeSantis, Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy is ahead of Mike Pence. Ramaswamy is ahead of, Tim Scott. He's ahead of Chris Christie. He's in third position. I don't know if it holds, but we'll see. But this is something that TC can back me up on. As I was doing my read-in on Ramaswamy in anticipation of our town hall, I learned that in his Harvard days, he was a libertarian-minded rap artist who went by the stage name Davake. Yeah. And I said to you, you got to go find the audio or video.
I crossingly looked for it. So I looked everywhere that I could think, Googled 17 Ways of Sunday, and could not find a clip of Vivek doing any kind of rapping while he was at Harvard. There were mentions of it. There was mentions of it in the Crimson back then, but there was no video or audio.
So today, Politico, from a friend of his, was able to get some video.
That actually made me feel better, that it wasn't like readily available online. It was provided to them. I'm sure. I was like, where did they get this?
What? We're just going to play a snippet, but which one do you want to do first?
Okay, so we'll do the old one first.
Okay, so this is Vivek back in the day.
Back in the day, so he's a teenager-ish at Harvard.
Right.
And he's rapping an Eminem song.
If you had one shot, one opportunity, you better lose yourself in the music the moment you own it. You better never let it go. And get one shot, do not miss your chance to blow.
Okay, that's Vivek, Harvard days.
Harvard days.
When we had him in front of a live audience of POTUS listeners in the Philly Burbs recently for the town hall, I asked him to give us a taste. Could you indulge us just a little? I mean, come on, just a little bit. Because I got to tell you, Vivek, I can't find any video. Like, has that been buried?
There was. I mean, this is back from like 2003, 2004, so I'm sure it's out there.
Give me something. Come on, for SiriusXM. What do you got?
I mean, literally, you are putting me on the spot here. All right. It's Vivek like cake. I'm not fake, and I swim in a lake of truth. That's me, Vivek. Yeah.
All right, a little something for our live audience that day.
There you go.
Yesterday, I talked about Raj Chetty. Speaking of Harvard, he's a Harvard economist, researcher, and new analysis of him of the admissions process, which totally captivated me yesterday. 1 in 6 Ivy League undergrads has parents in the top 1%. And it highlighted the whole issue again of legacy admissions, athletic admissions, the question of who's getting in the aftermath of the Supreme Court opinion that said there will no longer be race-based admission criteria. Now comes the follow-up story, which is posted at Smerconish.com from the Crimson, actually today. The U.S. Department of Education officially opened an investigation on Tuesday into the use of donor and legacy preferences at Harvard's admissions process. The Education Department Office for Civil Rights will investigate whether the university's use in undergraduate admissions discriminates on the basis of race. Chetty's analysis yesterday did not suggest that race was a factor in legacy admissions, meaning if you're of color and your son or your daughter was accepted at Harvard, they too are a beneficiary of it. It's not as if the legacy admissions only apply to, white families that get in. Something else that we linked to today at Smerconish.com. It is a 4,000-word story at Variety titled Inside the Battle for CNN, which I read with great interest.
I feel like it's not only a professional battle, but it feels very personal.
Yeah, the question is it remotely accurate?
I have no idea.
Because
someone's not telling the truth.
Someone is not telling the truth.
I mean, that's
someone
my
is
bottom
not
line.
telling not telling the truth. And I, cards on the table, I feel a sense of loyalty to Jeff Zucker, who hired me at CNN. Always was a very straight shooter with me. Never. I mean, Jeff would give you the truth, the stone cold truth, even if it was not what you wanted to hear. That was the kind of guy he was, and that's why so many of us, I would say, felt like they had good relationships with him. Here is the quick summary that I would give you of this story. It paints a picture of Jeff as being a dogged pursuer of CNN ever since his departure from CNN. That now working in private equity and supported by some very wealthy business partners, he has been out there trying to line up funding so that he could purchase CNN and retake the throne. And in the story in Variety that was written by Tatiana Siegel, she makes very specific allegations about him approaching this fund and that fund and this fund and so forth. And at every turn, including in the follow-up, Jeff, and Reliable Sources covers this today extensively, says it's total BS. It's a joke. Like, none of that happened.
None of that.
None of that.
That's a big nothing. In other words, if that really didn't happen and that's the reporting, then that's just what I'm saying. I don't get it. It's not a small untruth. It's a huge untruth.
Oliver Darcy in Reliable Sources covers the subject I'm discussing this way.
Okay.
Variety is facing a blistering wave of backlash. The Hollywood trade publication is being confronted with serious questions about its journalism from top industry figures over a feature story it published Tuesday that aimed to offer a fresh look into the behind-the-scenes drama and power struggles that beset CNN over the past 18 months. Within minutes of publication, the story written by Tatiana Siegel, the outlet's executive editor of film and media, ricocheted through the media universe, igniting buzz and raising eyebrows among journalists, executives, television agents, and everyone in between. But soon after the dust settled, the veracity of the article's many anecdotes and characterizations came under heightened scrutiny, and then goes on to say it chiefly portrayed CNN former chief executive Jeff Zucker as an emotionally wounded former executive, singularly obsessed with finding an avenue to purchase the network that he once led. In an on-the-record statement to me, Risa Heller, a spokesperson for Zucker, went even further than the statements provided to Variety. Heller denounced Siegel's reporting practices, describing the published piece as a total joke. So it's a long read. It's a deep dive. If you're interested, by all means, check that out. Other news, TC, from Smerconish.com, the newsletter. I hate to say his name, but I have to say his name. The presumed Idaho, the killer, the suspect, Koberger.
Hey, how about that defense?
The lawyer says he's got an alibi.
What about, that, to me, I read that headline and I was so shocked. I feel like, but then I have to say, okay, we're all presumed innocent, but we've heard that there's the DNA on the knife, that there are all these, we've heard
the triangulation of those cell phone records.
Pretty bad evidence.
Harder and harder to be a killer these days. As I said about Gilgo Beach.
Right.
Same thing here. I mean, in Gilgo Beach, remember, the big break was finally the Chevy Avalanche, right. I guess it was, and it seems shamefully like they should have looked at that 10 years ago. But he was using burner phones, and they triangulated where the calls were coming from to the escorts that he later presumably killed.
Because, come on.
And they knew, like, within this community in Long Island, somewhere here is the killer. And then similarly, they triangulated cell phone records from Midtown Manhattan, not far from Madison Square Garden and Penn Station.
Right.
Well, okay, he lived on Long Island and he worked not far away from that location, which was further proof, like, somewhere in both of these orbits is our man. And similarly here with Coburger, and what was it, a Kia? What was he driving that day?
I think that makes something like that.
Okay, but they knew the make of the vehicle, and then they put together the phone records. The whole triangulation of these phone records is time and again, as is DNA, of critical significance.
In the court documents, it says an alibi indicates a line of proof by which the defendant attempts to show that he could not have committed the crime of which he was accused because he was elsewhere at the time.
I want to make sure that Bronny James is stable, thank God.
Whew.
Does he get to play again? I don't know.
Well, it depends what he suffered cardiac arrest from. Like, is this some kind of cardiomyopathy, and are we going to go down a path by which he's going to have to be treated? Who knows? But
scary.
The thank God part is that he had this event and he is still alive, and now he can be treated.
I'm racing through the headlines because
you are.
I don't want you to bury this one. Headline from newspress.com.
Where, by the way, they just launched a new column called Rumor and Buzz.
Yeah,
Quote, written by a journalist who has chosen a nom de plume.
Nom de plume.
Which means that this is an anonymous.
Okay, just don't be a Debbie Downer.
What is quote Momus in Greek mythology? Momus is the god of satire and mockery.
The buzz
what
around
does Momus have to say?
The buzz around this town is that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Why do they still have those titles? They abandoned their titles.
No, they're not HR. Her Royal Highness.
Have either already purchased or are shopping for a very private estate in Hope Ranch, having determined that their Montecito mansion does not properly accommodate them. This comes amid rumor that the Duke's father, King Charles III, is withholding a decision as to whether to provide prince and princess titles to the couple's children until he learns what his errant younger son will be exposing about the royal family in his upcoming book, now delayed by Random House until next year. So, not sure what to make of it, but maybe they're on the move.
I mean, Momus seems to have it all figured out.
Maybe they're on the move. Also, good news for President Biden. Mick Jagger turns 80 years old.
Is that unbelievable? Happy birthday, Mr. Jagger.
It's really stunning.
80.
It's stunning that he's
still, quote, strutting and gyrating in front of packed out arenas.
I'm telling you, the combination of Mick Jagger being out there on tour and Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford doing what he's doing is all good news for the President of the United States. Speaking of whom, do you think he ever spoke to Hunter about his business? Do you think President Biden ever spoke to Hunter Biden about Hunter's business? That is the poll question today at Smerconish.com. Please go and cast a ballot. Subscribe to the newsletter if you want to look at the editorial cartoon work of a Pulitzer Prize winner. Love the way that looks today in the newsletter and thrilled that so many of you have already subscribed. All right. Have a great day. See ya.